Welcome to Queer View Mirror, a show about queer people, by queer people, for queer people, and our allies. I am Dawn.
And I'm Scott.
And today, we are going to talk about family, faith, and the queer community.
On our show today, our special guest, Susan COTTRELL, highlights some familiar themes that are still very relevant for our queer community.
I was so moved by Susan's commitment to her children and her enormous contribution as a queer ally. In her being a straight parent, I can only imagine the challenges of having two queer children and also being part of a church that rejected them. I believe Susan was a revolutionary in her influence.
Yes, she was. She made a choice to celebrate her children's identity and promote an inclusive understanding within her community of faith. For over a decade, Susan has been making a huge difference by supporting parents and families everywhere who are challenging policies of exclusion within their own churches.
Very exciting, Scott. But before that... We are talking today about parenting, the church, and what it means as a straight parent when two of your children tell you that they are queer. Our guest, Susan COTTRELL, has a very unique story to tell, where she confronts her own beliefs and her church when two of her children came out to her.
Susan did an amazing TED Talk in 2018 that was powerful and spoke to her lived experience and her mission. Susan carries conviction in her role as an ordained minister and allied spokesperson for the queer community. Through her organization, Freed Hearts, she has managed to connect thousands of people and families needing support for themselves and their children. In fact, a major part of Susan's work is supporting LGBTQ+ children and teens who've been rejected by their families.
I can't imagine any efforts more important for our community. What a wonderful achievement and support for our queer families and people of religious faith. Susan and her team are helping others revolutionize other church leaderships to become more accepting and inclusive. We know the message is being passed on that it's all about love, and love is all about inclusion and affirmation and not just tolerance.
Yes, that's an important distinction, Dawn. Queer people deserve to have their identity celebrated just like everyone else. We heard from Susan there are some churches that welcome queer people with the agenda of changing them, and I hope this group is in the minority. Let's go to the interview and explore Susan's experience.
As a mother who came to a realization that day when you got the call from your daughter.
Yeah, my daughter called me from college, and I always loved when she'd call. We'd have long talks. And then we talked for a while, and then she said, I've got something to tell you. I'm bisexual, and I've tried to pray it away. I've tried to resist it. I've, tried to deny it, and it just won't go away. And my thought was, because we were in the evangelical church at the time, and I thought, oh gosh, we'll never fit in the community again. They'll never accept us like this. And later on, I thought, that's a real indictment of community, that your first thought is they're going to reject us. Excuse me. So I just, but I wasn't going to reject my daughter. There was no way that was happening. And so I asked her to kind of help me understand. And she recommended books that I read, and it dismantled what I had been taught in church, what we had been taught. And I thought, at that point, man, the church is crazy. They're just crazy the way they frame this thing as a sin, as a deal breaker sin, as a we can't even have you in our community. It's just was heartbreaking to realize that. And what happens when you make that kind of discovery is in a lot of pieces start to fall off the bus, and you're like, oh, That's why they didn't want me to accept this, because they knew a lot of pieces would start falling off, and they did. And we really deconstructed our faith. So, and in the end, we're far better off than we were. But what happened with Annie was she started telling me, well, they go by they now. They started telling me about friends that were just like thrown downstairs by their mother or kicked out of the house just the day they came out. Just these stories that were horrific, beaten by their dad. And I thought that's an awful, awful thing. And my girls are fine. They're not going anywhere from us. But there are other people out there that really need help. And I knew that I knew the church community well enough to speak their language and to reach out and help people. And I wrote a blog post, my very first one, about this. It was called God, Some Gays, and the Bible.
Sorry, say it again.
God, Some Gays, and the Bible.
Okay.
I love that.
And it was my discovery that because we went to visit the Supreme Court, and it was the day that all the LGBT people were there. The previous day had been the church people. So I came on the right day, and I just watched these lovely people, peaceful, loving, kind. And I thought the church has really, really missed it. And so anyway, I wrote a blog post that night about that experience, and just people started coming out of the woodwork because people are very hurting and confused about this. And especially then, it was 8 years ago. So it's just kind of exploded since then. And now I speak and travel and write. I've written resources for parents. I've written resources for LGBT, a deeply healing workbook that I have on my site, and some video courses to go along with them. And because I'm in this 100%, because I've just seen the heartache, and I want to help people past that, because they don't need to be heartbroken. This is not a heartbreaking situation unless people make it into one.
Susan, I just love that when you got that phone call from your daughter, your first instinct was help me to understand. You didn't go to that place of judgment. You didn't go to that place of, making it about you and how the world would perceive it. Yeah. What do you credit that to? Because it sounds like you were fairly enmeshed in this religious community.
Okay. I just sort of have a different kind of perspective on life, I think, in much of the church. And I had seen that the biggest thing that Jesus tells us, all these people that claim to follow Jesus, well, the biggest thing Jesus tells us is to love each other, to be kind to each other, to embrace each other, and not to judge. Let God be the judge. And so those to me have been the pillars, and they were able to resonate even with the swirling understanding that we were going to be rejected. All that was true, but that anchor that that it's all about love. It's not about rules. It's about love. And I think that's what kept me safe. And it kept me on the right path. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. A lot of people died in my family, 3 brothers and both parents by the time I was 23.
Oh, wow.
24. Wow. And so to me, it made me really crystal clear about what's important in life. And it's love, and it's relationships, and it's the people that you love and keeping them close. And it's not about holding standards for other people. Who am I to hold standards for you? That's just how did that come about, So, but I think that was the plumb line for me, was it's about love. If Christians would get that, the whole church would look different.
Why did the churches miss that?
Well, why is it that religious leaders do that? Because if you just talk about God's love and God's 100% acceptance, which is the bottom line, then you aren't really needed as a middleman.
That's true.
There's power to maintain. There's control to maintain.
Control, yeah, control.
There's money to be paid, and you lose all that power if if you get something directly resale or wholesale, then you don't need the retailer.
That's
And
true.
so he's written out.
So after you kind of made your way through that, then what happened?
Well, I don't know if I said, but my second daughter, our youngest, we have three. So the first one and then the youngest came out like a year later. And I
Oh,
always
wow.
thought that Annie kind of, the way she helped us was coming through with a machete to cut through our theology and our understanding and clear a path. And then Hannah comes behind saying, "Me too."
I love it.
Well, Hannah got the easy route, and she'll admit that. But but anyway, so Hannah, our whole family started changing. We started the blog, and then people started coming out of the woodwork, and I started writing things and doing videos and all kinds of stuff. And so it just grew into this big thing. But our family changed completely. And we have 5 children, and 2 of them are queer, and 2 of them are very affirming, though they had to understand it too. And one of them's not really affirming. He's very kind and he's loving, but he's still in the church understanding. So it's been an interesting journey.
Did anybody reach out to you? I know you've been, you did your TEDx talk, you write, you have a blog. How has the response been from the community at large? Have people been reaching out to you?
We have gotten thousands of comments on that TED Talk. They loved it.
Wow.
And the overwhelming majority of them had been stellar comments, wonderful. There have been just a few that are like, this is why women shouldn't be pastors. This why, it's like.
Well,
But
speaking of that, I understand you are an ordained minister.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So right after we started this, the door opened for me to go to seminary. The circumstances just opened. My friend had just graduated, and she said, "Oh, come with me to my little, thing. There's a talk there." I was like, "Sure." And then I get there, and it's like, "Oh, I could actually go to the seminary," and it was almost all paid for by scholarship. So anyway, I ended up going for 3 years to the seminary, and oh my gosh, it was like all of this discovery that I had no idea that the evangelical church had gotten wrong, And this seminary, which was not evangelical, which is very progressive, like taught me things that were profound. So
Wow.
it really equipped me now to go back and do business with people who think it's wrong. And I know the Bible. I know the theology, and I can go toe to toe. And I've heard all the arguments. I've thought through and answered all the arguments. So I really enjoy those conversations. Some of my extended family just thinks we're evil incarnate.
Oh.
We have so missed the boat, and they have no idea. I mean,
Well, just as a point of reference, Susan, all this happened like your family was in Texas at the time. Am I right?
yes. So all this stuff happened with a church north of Houston, and then we moved into Austin when we started our Freed Hearts. And Austin's very progressive. It's got a big university there that the most overeducated waiters you'll ever find live in Austin because people love the city. And anyway, so it was a really good place to do this. That's where I went to seminary. But we moved to Seattle because some of our kids moved here, and nobody was in Austin anymore. So we
I
we
see.
we're going to be near the kids.
And thank God you're there. Look what's happening in Texas now. I mean, thank God you're not there.
Gosh, so many things.
It's
I thank
brutal.
God every day that we're here.
So tell us, how did Free Hearts come to be, and what was that process like?
Well, really, after Annie came out and I started to learn about the disenfranchisement of the community and how badly they'd been hurt, I knew I had to do something. I did. I knew it. I could feel the Spirit of God saying, I want you to minister to this community. I'm like, how do I do that? What do I, start? And the Spirit just said, I want you to minister to this community. And I just kind of let it evolve and, uh, and just grew into it. I grew into this role that, now people reach out to me from everywhere. We have an online community. We have the moms group, which is thousands of moms. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so they're able to just keep encouraging each other and giving each other wisdom and saying, oh my gosh, I've been there. And I just added an old friend from years ago whose daughter just came out as trans. And so now the mom's in the group and she's like, it's my only daughter. How I'm going to lose my daughter. And I know that's not right. And I said, it is a loss and you need to grieve that loss. And you're gaining a son. So, there's just so much humanity to work through in this process. And if we could be more steeped and groomed, if the church would use its massive privilege and resources and visibility to groom us to kindness,
Mm-hmm.
love, and acceptance, the world would vibrate with the repercussions of that. So anyway, when you drill down to the love, it's just not that hard. This is not that hard. We have an online course for LGBTQ, and it goes with the book that I wrote called True Colors, and it's a deeply healing workbook. So I've got that print, the book, and the Mama and Gay book, and both of them have video courses that go with it. And I have a whole YouTube channel of videos that I've done that are just 5 minutes. There's a whole series I did on hell, deconstructing hell. You wouldn't believe how many people write me that are terrified to lay awake in bed at night, afraid they're going to burn in hell forever. But that's not God. That's Augustine you're thinking of.
That is so true.
But people don't know that because they've been so conditioned. So anyway, so I have the books, I have the video courses, I have the online support groups, I have the YouTube courses, and I'm coming out with another series of courses to help people kind of walk this journey. The first one is like, it's Beloved Journey, Be the Love. I think it's something about, I forget the title. I haven't worked on the title yet, but it's a love journey of self-love and then loving others. And so these will be courses. It's like 21-day adventure kind of thing. So we've got those coming. We just started our podcast. We're like, I don't know, 12 have been put up already, episodes. So it's just kind of on all fronts that we're working: print, film, live, podcast, and all of the resources we have a lot of resources, and they're all at freedhearts.org. So you can just go there. I have over 600 posts from my blog. So, which I'm writing less of that now, but they're all there and archived and really powerful. And the message that I give is that LGBTQ people can love themselves and be at peace with themselves, and they're perfectly fine exactly as they are. They're perfectly created to be as they are, and by God, and they have nothing to be ashamed of. And then families and parents can come around their loved ones, and that is consistent with their faith. It's not in spite of their faith. So, I really help people deconstruct and understand, and I'm happy to talk to the church that's willing. A lot of religious leaders won't have the conversation because why would they? They've got a good thing going there. They don't want me coming in and telling them, telling people they don't need to be subservient to this false message.
The word that you constantly use is affirming.
Yes.
From where I come from, the word we're looking for is acceptance. So
Yeah.
is there a difference, or is that just
Yes. Affirming means I celebrate you as you are. I accept and am happy for you to be who you are. if you just say acceptance, like a lot of churches say, we accept everybody, but really they have an agenda to change you. And it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
reluctantly accepting you. And so there is a difference. If I can't be celebrated as I am, then I don't need your acceptance. I don't want to just be tolerated. Acceptance is more like tolerated in, common usage of around these church people who speak. It can vary, you know, it can vary. Temperatures may vary, but people will say, well, I don't have anything against gay people. I accept gay people. It, but God doesn't want them to be gay. I'm like, then you don't accept them.
Really?
You certainly don't affirm them. And if somebody says, well, I think women are really inferior, but I accept you, I'm like, no, thanks. No, thank you. Also, another thing that happens in some of these churches is that they know they look bad by being intolerant. They don't want to be called intolerant, though they are. So instead they'll say, we accept you. And it's like a false front.
It's a word play.
It's a word play to
Mm-hmm.
get you in the door. And I've had people I had a church leader say to me, she was like the assistant to this mega church pastor. And she said, well, we have gay people in our church. It's a huge church. We have gay people there, and they may not know for 3 years that they can't be in leadership. Like, you say that like that's a favor. That's the worst thing you can do is get them invested.
Wow.
Their heart, their money, their time, their energy into this place that knows it has a ceiling for them. That's awful. So um, you want to go in and find out exactly what they believe before you commit yourself and put your heart into this church, and certainly your money. You don't want to do that. And so you can ask the hard questions. If I wonder about a church, I'm not looking for a church, but if I wonder about a church, I'll call and ask directly. And if there's I say, where are you on LGBTQ inclusion? And if there's anything but a resounding, absolutely affirming, then I know that it's just wordplay, as you said. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, we believe everybody's accepted. I was like, no, no, that's not what I'm asking. You know what I'm asking you, and you're going around me here. So, like, do you affirm LGBTQ people? If it's a no, thank you very much. But don't pretend. I think that's what really bothers me a lot. You can hear it in my voice.
I know.
Is false pretend, false acceptance, but it has a ceiling to it.
Great. Well, what's next on the horizon for you, Susan?
Well, we are very eager to get these courses out, these new courses that'll be on the website. And I think our first one comes out in May, either May or June. I think maybe it's June because to coincide with Pride Month. But just go on the website and find the information that we have, and it'll start coming to you. You just sign up for our newsletter because we're very excited about those courses, and the podcast. We're continuing that. That's going strong, and the video courses that are online. Those are really powerful. So that's all on the horizon. And I'm going actually to Provincetown in June, which I'm very excited about, in Cape Cod, do some filming. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so good stuff happening.
Of course.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
And there we have it, another extraordinary conversation around family, faith, and the queer identity. What a great interview with Susan COTTRELL. I encourage everyone to watch her TED Talk on YouTube and check out her website, freedhearts.org. She's so inspiring and truly a mother with a massive heart and a lot of love to give. I really believe people like her will be helping certain faiths and churches into the most enlightened society that we imagine for our future.
Dawn, despite myself, I'm pretty hopeful. I can appreciate there are many queer people questioning their relationships within their church, and I hope we've relayed the message that there are options for all of us in our faith and the church, especially as a message to our youth. You are not alone, and you have a massive queer family that accepts you unconditionally.
Oh, exactly. A massive family. Well said, Scott. One thing that stands out for me in Susan's message of affirmation and celebration is that faith is not about accepting or tolerating the sinner. True Christians do not judge and do not condemn their loved ones, especially their own children. They embrace and support them. Susan has made it her life mission to support her queer children who experience struggles with acceptance. Her community has the brave conversations required to challenge churches to evolve and embrace inclusion. I believe all of us are God's children.
I'm really encouraged to hear from a queer ally like Susan COTTRELL. I'm not personally religious, but I respect that many people are religious, queer, and proud. I believe we need to make space for everyone and allow for the evolution of individual churches. Some are paving the way for inclusion of queer communities, and I'm hopeful.
Yes, indeed, as you should be. Susan's story expressed the loss she experienced and how painful it was choosing her children over her church community. She made a decision as a mother to support her children. It transformed her whole belief system. Today, she is making a difference through all kinds of media to support queer affirmation and inclusion. I believe this is a story of transformation, and I look forward to seeing church communities evolve in this manner.
I like staying positive, Dawn, so that's good enough for me. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Queer View Mirror.